Hi, I'm Alan Hedblum. Welcome to our show, a place to feel like you belong. Today's guest is Lupe Ramos-Montigny. Lupe is a lifelong educator, a political activist, and grassroots organizer. Lupe, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
And thank you so much for the invitation.
You bet. So you grew up in a border town in Texas. You were the seventh of 9 children.
That's right.
And you spoke Spanish at home. Didn't start learning English until you went to school. Can you tell us what life was like for you and your siblings growing up in mid-1900s Texas?
Okay, well, we were 9, so we had a lot of children to play with. And then in the neighborhood, there were many other children because at that time, everybody had large families. So any game you wanted to play, there was somebody to play with.
What was the ethnic makeup of your neighborhood and of West Laco?
My neighborhood was all Mexican Americans.
Okay.
You went to the store, Mexican Americans, post office, Mexican Americans, everywhere you went, it was Mexican Americans. So we spoke Spanish.
So it was really the whole culture of your being, your world.
My world was Spanish speaking, and in my world, everybody was Mexican American.
So how many meters, how many miles or meters to the border?
There were about 10 miles, 10
Okay.
miles to Nuevo Laredo.
Okay.
It was close, it was real close. So we went back and forth into Mexico. And
Okay. So what was it like transitioning to a school then? I'm assuming the school had Anglo kids studying there as well?
well, not in K through 6th grade.
Okay.
It was all Mexican Americans.
Okay.
All of our teachers were English speaking, and we had a rough time because English is a very difficult language to learn, and so there were many sounds that we couldn't say, like the TH,
Mm-hmm.
and the teachers were not understanding of our background. And
Were they
the
monolingual
difficulty.
teachers?
Monolingual.
Okay.
Yes, they didn't live in our neighborhoods. They didn't shop in our neighborhoods. They didn't know who we were. And so I'm telling you, my kindergarten, they put us in preschool first, in a preschool, so we could learn a little English, and then we went to kindergarten, and then we went to 1st grade. So we didn't graduate until we were 18 or 19.
Okay.
But our K through 6th grade was very difficult because we didn't know the language. Later, you learned a little. So I was always real active. I would finish my lessons, and then they didn't know what to do with me. So I started teaching since I was in about the 3rd grade, because they would give me 2 or 3 children to take to the hall.
Your career had already declared itself.
Oh, yes, and I didn't know. I didn't know that. But I was going to be a teacher since I was in 3rd grade. So then after that, we literally crossed the railroad tracks, and we went to school with English-speaking students. And so that's where my life changed. And I found out, hey, this world is made out of more people than just Mexican Americans. And so
what was that like going to school at that point after the 6th grade with Anglo kids?
well, we kept to ourselves, and they kept to themselves. We didn't commingle. It wasn't integration. We were going to school together, but we didn't do anything together.
Was there a tension at the school or just sort of ignoring?
No, there was tension, yeah, and ignoring, and we weren't understood. We didn't understand either.
Were there any Mexican American teachers, or were they all?
No, we were. There was one, actually. The chemistry teacher was Spanish speaking. One thing that they emphasize is that we speak English all the time. And it was a good thing, but they didn't explain to us why we had to speak English. And now, as an educator, I see that one of the reasons was to increase our vocabulary, to better our pronunciation of the words, so we could, well, it's an English-speaking country, and so, so we could master the language. But when they tell you, you can't speak Spanish here, go to the office. And so where did Lupe go every day? To the office. Let me tell you a little story. This teacher used to send me to the office every day for speaking Spanish. Your brain automatically, when it knows another language and you speak it a lot at home, it just automatically, blares out the words in Spanish. So I said, one day, I said to my friends, you know what? We're going to go and study Spanish close to his window. So he's going to hear us and he's going to come out. And sure enough, we were studying our lesson in Spanish, and here comes the teacher. Didn't I tell you not to speak Spanish? And then I had told the little group, I'll be the spokesperson. I was in about 11th grade, 10th grade, somewhere in there. And he comes out, didn't I tell you not to speak Spanish? And I said, oh, but we're studying our Spanish class, Spanish lesson. He said, and he couldn't do anything.
So you were a community organizer way back then.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you were young, your family started coming north to the upper Midwest to work in farm fields.
That's right. That's right.
Can you tell us a little bit about the conditions that you lived under for those summer months that you were here in Michigan and Indiana picking produce?
Right. Yes. I must have been like 10, 11, and 12, because we came 3 consecutive years. And we would get in this big truck, and there were other families with us in the back of the truck. Mm-hmm. And so you didn't have benches or anything. You just sat on the floor. No. You sat on the floor on a blanket with your little belongings, okay? And so we would travel like that, and we would come over here to Michigan, and we would. The first time we came over here to the Thumb, to Kaysville, Michigan, and we harvested beets. And then after we would finish that, we would go over here to Old Mission Peninsula and harvest cherries. Then we would travel over here to Indiana and harvest tomatoes for the summer, the 3 months, and then we would go home.
Now, I know that you have been active for more than a decade locally in the Cesar Chavez community events and
Right.
recognizing the work and the legacy of Cesar. He campaigned for some basic rights of farm workers. Did you experience some of those conditions that he was working so hard to change?
Absolutely, absolutely. But see, I was young, so I didn't really know the difference until now. When we came to Michigan, the first time that my father was discriminated against was right here in Michigan. And I tell you, we came in this big truck, and they had the boards, the cab had the boards, the back part of the truck, and there was a little space where you could peer out and watch what was happening. And so my father stopped. We were almost at our destination over here to Kaysville. It was nighttime. He needed coffee to keep going, driving this big truck. And we stopped at a restaurant, and he came right back. And we were all watching. He came right back, and my mother said, what happened? He said, oh, they won't serve coffee because I'm Mexican. And I said in my brain, what? Because he's Mexican, they don't serve him coffee? And so that's when I understood more that people didn't like people because of who they were. And so the conditions in the farms, we didn't have electricity and running water. They would give us a little house, and hey, you survived. There was a pump outside that you could go pump and get the water, warm it up to take a shower, make a homemade shower little tent, and warm up the water to wash the dishes and cook and all that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Electricity, you had lamps. I mean, like, we were pioneers. And so, but the people that we work for, they were real kind and nice to us. It just wasn't, and I imagine we weren't paid very much, but I didn't understand that at the beginning, at that time. And my father, we were 9, right? 2 of them, the oldest 2 boys, would stay home. They were going to school at that time already, preparing for college.
Okay.
And so he would bring the other 7. And my father, I think, brought us over here so we could help, and then he would have enough money for the year.
So this was actually a way of making money to
Money.
get through the year, because back in Texas, your dad worked
Well,
as a mechanic?
A mechanic,
Okay.
yes. He ran a filling station,
Okay.
Texaco filling station, a mechanic. They did body work, they did sold used cars, but it was not, can you imagine 9 children?
It's a lot
And
of
then, wait a
mouths.
minute, then my grandmother also lived with us.
Of course.
And my uncle. And so the house, my house is lots bigger. And I say, how did we all fit in that little house and survive?
But that's what you knew?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know anything else. And we were a very cohesive family, very loving. My father would take us to a restaurant once a month, all 9 of us.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a table, the Ramos table in this restaurant. I don't know if it's still there or not. Mex-Tex was the name of the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And what we ate, which was, you know, a big deal for us, a hamburger with French fries, because we didn't eat that at home.
Sure.
He took us to the drive-in.
Mm-hmm.
He would take us to visit my aunt, which was 50 miles away. That was a long ways. I don't know how we fit in the car, all these people. But he tried real hard to provide different activities for us.
Mm-hmm.
We were a real close family. Even when we were in the fields, we couldn't leave the area. We had to stay there, and he gave us a goal. You pick 10 lugs of cherries, and then you can go. But he knew we couldn't. So then you stayed. The family was always together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you were talking about your 2 older brothers who had stayed back in Texas, going to high school, preparing to go to college. Your parents were not highly educated.
Third grade education, both of them.
But you have a master's degree,
Right.
and many of your siblings went on to higher education.
Right.
What was there in the culture of the family that said education is important? What gave you the drive to pursue?
In my father, because he was the role model, the spearheader of the whole thing. As a migrant worker, you don't want to be working in the fields the rest of your life. You know, there's other things. Now, the farm workers now are very, very important to the world because they provide food for us every day. And so if it wasn't for farm workers, and that's why Cesar was so adamant about protecting their wages, protecting their housing, protecting working conditions and all that, because the workers are going to be there and they need that they needed that protection, and they still do. So we knew that there was something else that we could do. My father knew that, and he knew that the only way we could get there was through education.
Sure.
That's how come we only brought us through the summer, and then we never missed school. And so he sacrificed, and you know, as I think back, 9 children, and in my family we have an attorney, we have a pastor who is a businessman too. We had, my sister was a high school counselor, 2 nurses. I am an educator too. So, and my sister was the secretary to the dean of law school, St. Mary's. So everybody, if you wanted to, could go to school. And my father would get loans from the bank. I don't know how he did it, but he, at the end, Irma and I, my other sister, she was younger than I, were going to college at the same time. So he had to provide. We worked, but it was not enough to pay. You know?
The one thing from conversations that I have with immigrants to this country, and immigrants anywhere, these are people who are really motivated. They have a lot of drive to improve their lives. That's why they picked up and moved themselves and their families. And it's a common thread that I see in so many stories. And yet there is a discussion in this country now and ongoing about immigration reform and how we should control the borders and not let immigrants in. What would you say to those people?
Well, you know, we have to accept the fact that our country is built by immigrants of all different countries. That's the fabric of our country. And so it's how they do it, how they say it, you know, let's put alligators, and when they cross the border, the alligators will eat them up, and let's do it this way. And very inhumane ways of doing it. But you know, My parents are the ones that crossed the border. I didn't. I was born in Texas. But there's a lot of, I'm reading a book right now, and I'm going to send you the title because I want you to read it. Okay. Families get separated, and it's very, very difficult for the children. Just think about divorce. Just think of death. Just think of, well, these families go through all of that. They really don't want to leave their countries. They don't really want to leave their families. They don't, but you know, hunger makes you do a lot of things. Providing for your family makes you do a lot of things. And so when people talk so unkind about these people that want to come for a better life, it does bother me a lot. And I'm working right now in many different, with the Mayor Hartwell. We have a group that's looking into immigration reform. I'm working with NALEO, a national group, with National Council of La Raza, a national group, with a group right here in town, the MICA Center. All of us are working together because you know what? Immigration reform is going to happen. Mm-hmm. Immigration reform is going to happen. Women were at a stage at one time where we couldn't vote. And women went to jail. Women were raped. Women were ridiculed. Women were everything. Do you think that the women gave up? No, we can vote now, right? The African Americans, the Mexican Americans, we used to have to pay a poll tax because you go to the polls to vote, and so you had to pay a poll tax to vote. And just people of color had to do that. They would give us exams. They knew we couldn't read and write English, but we were citizens and we could vote. But they gave us a test so we could vote. And right now they changed the times, they changed less machines to vote. They do it different ways of keeping people from voting. You know, and in all these Hispanic countries, there's a day where everything closes. All the stores, no liquor, no guns. You know why? So they can go vote. And in the United States, we can't do that.
In thinking about the theme of the show is belonging. How do you create a sense of home when a place isn't where you're from, whether it's another state or another country? How do you get connected? How do you create that sense of, yeah, this is where I belong?
Home. Well, one of the things that I strongly recommend to everyone to learn how to speak English. That's very important because here, that's the language. However, you don't forget your language. You know how we're built, our human body is built to learn languages. The Creator was very, very wise because he knew there were going to be many, many languages. This part of our body right here is just for languages. And so I don't encourage learn how to speak English and forget your language. No, learn how to speak English and learn many different languages because your body is capable of doing that. Also, get educated in some way, get informed, get involved. I get a lot of people involved to the Committee to Honor Cesar Chavez. You don't have to have a PhD to belong to the Committee to Honor Cesar Chavez because there's a lot of things that people can do to make the whole. We need all kinds of minds. Right now I have universities that are involved, the Grand Rapids Public Schools, the Grand Rapids Public Museum. So get involved with something in your community. They're very involved with their schools. Mm-hmm. The ones that have children in schools, go to parent-teacher conferences, go meet your teacher, your principal, get involved in that way.
What if you're afraid? What if you're not an outgoing? Because clearly you were a leader from an early age,
yes.
And a lot of other people are more reticent. How do they get involved if they're a little bit more cautious than you?
Yeah. Everybody, that comes to a different world. It's literally a different world. The United States you go to the store, there's a lot of food and so on and so on. And in a lot of these countries, there's not a lot of food when you go to the store. Or they live in farms. They don't even have a store. You grow your own food. And so it's a lot of the people that come here don't know have never been in school before. And so how do they tackle that? Well, they have to have people to guide them and tell them, feel like you belong, because you do. Feel like you belong. You're a human being. Being a human being gives you a special right, okay. A very, very special right. And you have to feel like you belong. Whatever I have, whatever I'm involved with, now I'm a State Board of Education member. I invite people, I get people involved, I try to inform everything that people have, and I tell everyone, whatever you have, bring people in, because that's the way that people get involved. And like I was telling you, your circle of friends just keeps growing and growing. And the basic thing that you have to remember is that they're human beings with a desire to belong. And that's the bottom line.
Well, it's clearly a team effort. You need
Absolutely.
to try to reach out, but we need to make our community more inclusive. And I want to, conclude on this note. Thank you for continuing to reach out and make the community more inclusive. You retired a couple of years ago from full-time teaching, and yet you're still doing this wonderful work. So yeah. Thank you for
Very
joining us on the show.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
You bet. And to our viewers, join us back in a little bit, and we'll have our segment, What'd You Say? During our conversation with Lupe, you saw a number of expressions, some slang, some cultural references highlighted on the screen. Let's take a look at those now. First, you saw grassroots organizer. Now, this is a person who organizes everyday people to take action in their community. And if you think about it, the roots of the grass are down low, and it implies that all of the energy, all of the action is from the bottom growing up. When she talked about her experience in Michigan picking cherries, she said her father would set a goal for each of the kids to pick 10 lugs of cherries. Now, a lug is an old-fashioned container that holds freshly picked produce. For other expressions, please go to our website at feellikeyouBelong.com. So here's a heartwarming story in the news for all of you romantics. A binational couple got married on a Zodiac raft in the middle of the Rio Grande this past month. The bride, Stephanie Guerra, is a U.S. citizen, but her fiancé, Ruben Alfonso Fierro, is not. The couple has 4 young children who are all U.S. citizens, but Fierro had been living for years in the U.S., never having legally immigrated. So when he temporarily left the country recently, he was not allowed to return. So it seemed the fastest way for the family to come back together was to get married in the United States, except for a minor issue with the U.S. Border Patrol coming in the way. So here's where it's good to know the details of the law. It seems that there is an obscure 1848 treaty that allows free navigation on both sides of the Rio Grande, which is the river that forms almost half of the U.S. border with Mexico. So Judge Hector Liendo from Laredo, Texas, boarded the couple's raft, which was both in the river but technically also in U.S. territory, and he conducted the ceremony. Fierro's family members, who had boarded from the Mexican border town of Nuevo Laredo, were also in attendance. Under the watchful eyes of the U.S. Border Patrol, the couple was legally married. This is an act which should speed up Fierro's return to the United States and his family. So I say hooray for love and the creativity it inspires in all of us. How do you know if a light bulb is burned out? Well, usually you shake it next to your ear, because if the filament inside is broken, it will rattle about and you know, this light bulb needs to be replaced. Did you know that Americans have a joke built around changing light bulbs? First of all, how do you change a light bulb? So two things you have to do. First of all, reach up and unscrew a light bulb, and unscrewing it involves turning to the left. How do you remember that? A lot of people can't. Just remember lefty-loosey, and if you want to tighten it, it's righty-tighty. Okay? Lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. So, the jokes about changing light bulbs will start off with a riddle. How many such and such does it take to change a light bulb? Now, we usually use this joke to kind of emphasize stereotypes and make fun of people. So you'll hear someone say, for example, how many Michigan State Spartans does it take to change a light bulb? Or how many rich people does it take to change a light bulb? And then the answer has a kind of funny poking of fun at those groups of people. Let me give you an example of a classic light bulb joke, but I'm going to substitute the word fools for the particular joke or the particular group that you want to make fun of. How many fools does it take to change a light bulb? The answer? 4. 4, you're wondering. How is that? Well, it takes one person to hold the light bulb, and it takes 3 other people to turn the ladder. Now, if this joke wasn't funny to you, you can either ask your American friends to explain it to you, or you can go to our website at feellikeyouBelong.com for an explanation. But in the meantime, be sure to ask your friends to tell you their favorite light bulb jokes. On our website, I've included a few of my own. Thanks.